Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be talking about multiple upcoming intense storms from west coast to east coast. We expect multiple different impacts, including snow, ice, which I'm particularly worried about, with some really big concerning trends that we've seen in the models that we need to go over. We're also expecting some severe weather, flooding, rainfall, windiness from these storms, again, from west coast to east coast. And then we see a pattern change, a huge pattern change in the medium to long range that would completely flip us into a different but very also impactful pattern that we really need to talk about. Anyways, before I get into this video, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, when do you think we're going to see a big pattern change, and what do you think that will look like? Will it be more intense or less intense than what we're currently dealing with? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. For our daily viewers, today I'm using a black drawing pen here, so let me know if you prefer that or not, if it makes it easier to see. I'm kind of limited with the colors that I can use in this application that I use, so just let me know if you prefer this or the yellow. I think black is going to be less likely to be, not really visible, because sometimes there is yellow on the radar, obviously, so I think that's worth noting. But we have some storminess definitely out here in the west, particularly, obviously, the snowiness up here in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and even Wisconsin there is concerning. But we also have kind of spread around snow showers and rain showers going on for a lot of the western United States as a whole. And then we have these thunderstorms building in for the deep south here that are also worth noting, with some showers right there for the Carolinas and some snow showers up here for Maine. So we have a few things to talk about. Let's just talk about the Northwest first off. And as you can see, we have a flow kind of like this, where we do have these showers just heading in from Canada and from the Pacific into Montana, Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. Obviously, like I mentioned yesterday, a lot of these coastal regions are dealing with some raininess, and then the mountainous regions are dealing with snowfall, and then the valleys are dealing with rainfall, and then the other mountains are dealing with snowfall. This is why the West is a little bit confusing to forecast, because you go from low elevation to high elevation, back to low elevation, back to high elevation, and then eventually as you head eastward to the plains, low elevation again, and then the Appalachians, you can keep going. But let's move a little bit further south. We do have some snowfall and rainfall going on down here as well. Snowfall definitely up here for northern Nevada. This is pretty typical to see for that region. Also near Salt Lake City and northward into Idaho as well. And then throughout Wyoming, we're also seeing some of that snowfall take place. But again, it's mostly this area up here in the northern plains that we're concerned about, where heavy snowfall is taking place. Especially, I'm going to underline the area here, but right under here, or right above here, better yet, for southern North Dakota especially, and even portions of South Dakota, we've seen this develop. But those bright whites and blues in there are indicating extremely heavy snowfall. So I wouldn't be surprised if a bullseye sets up somewhere in here. That's where I'm going to indicate. But especially back here, we know they've already dealt with the very, very heavy snowfall for a prolonged period amount of time. And that has led towards probably great amounts of accumulation for a lot of those regions. But likely, most areas there are seeing accumulation regardless, so I think that's worth noting. Now, again, like I mentioned, up here for Maine, we did have a pocket of showers that moved through overnight into this morning. Likely no accumulation with this, so I'm not too concerned. If there was accumulation, it would probably be down here in this corridor where things did get a little bit heavier, but I would be shocked if there was even any accumulation from that, really. Now, really, I think one of the bigger concerns here is definitely the severe weather that we're expecting today. We will go over the Storm Prediction Center's forecast in a little while, but we have had these thunderstorms already developing here for this region. So you'll see the lightning pop up on the screen there as these storms got a little bit worse overnight, 4 a.m. to about 6 a.m. Right now it's 6:30 a.m. Eastern time, so over the last couple of hours we've seen these develop mostly north of I-20. So mostly as these crossed over this interstate here, we've seen these develop into thunderstorms, as you can see, for Minnesota, Louisiana. We've had some south of I-20, but we're mostly actually going to be watching for when these storms head a little bit further north into these regions. So this flow will eventually take these into these regions, and that's when we're going to be especially watching for severe weather. But like I said, we will talk about that a little bit later on. And then we just have some showers that have moved into this region here for southern North Carolina and then regions of South Carolina. What a beautiful region. My dad's actually from somewhere in this circle, and it's just really beautiful going down there to southern North Carolina specifically. Um, Really warms my heart every time I go down there. It's a part of me, really. I love that area, and they're dealing with some showers this morning, so a little bit of some peaceful weather. I'm glad I'm not talking about anything dangerous for a place so near and dear to my heart. But really, everywhere in the United States is near and dear to my heart. You know what? Better yet, everywhere in the world is near and dear to my heart. So I care about everybody, but this area in particular means a lot to me. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at some modeled guidance in just a moment where we're going to talk about how this storm is going to play out, and then a couple of upcoming storms where I'm, again, becoming more and more concerned about the ice storm threat, actually. Some severe weather threat, some snowfall threat, some flooding rain threat, but especially that ice storm threat. And then we're going to talk about that upcoming huge pattern change that's going to flip up everything, really. All right, now here we are taking a look at our European model, and things get interesting on both the GFS and the European model, but we'll talk about both today. This is later on this afternoon, and here's those thunderstorms building in a lot for that region. Here, as you can see, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, even into Georgia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas. So multiple states are going to be involved here with those thunderstorms throughout the day today. Now, we do have a ton of snowfall basically from the West Coast up through the upper Midwest, as you can see, going on. So we have a lot going on with this storm as it builds in. It's a quite intense one. It's just so broad. I feel like it's just involving so many different regions that it's more spread out and less intense for any particular region overall. Usually the storms that are more reeled in and a little bit smaller tend to be a bit more impactful as far as the intensity of the impacts at the surface. But really, I mean, even how large a storm is, it's still bringing major impacts, which is super interesting. Now, we do have these thunderstorms really spreading out as we reach this evening. A low pressure system here, 993. And this one's going to build in and just do what our most previous storm has done as well and move out up there through Canada. And as we can see, it basically begins to move out. It does weaken a bit, but the impacts aren't weak. It's just the low pressure is weak. We do have this storminess underneath here. Mostly this southern end we're watching for Tuesday for that severe weather, even further eastward as well into here. And then to the north, I mean, maybe some flooding concerns here, but mostly ice through here with this one, and then snowfall up here, obviously, for all of these regions. We're also going to be watching for that as well. So let's just keep moving on with this, and we see these storms still around. It's going to be more of a general thunderstorm risk here as we reach into Wednesday. This is actually Tuesday night into Wednesday, so this will be the severe weather in here. But the next day, when we take a look here, this is going to be more of a general thunderstorm risk, or at least that's what's being indicated by the Storm Prediction Center at this point. Now, as that one was moving through, what we've seen happen is another low pressure system moves through like this and begins to make its turn here with the jet stream. So let's watch that play out as well. By the way, this does bring a lot of snowfall to here, just like most of these storms have been doing. And then we see ice really developing in here. And this is when I get kind of concerned about this. Watch what happens here. So for Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, maybe Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas. We're just going to name a few states in the general area, even Texas maybe there on the northern end. We watch as throughout the, basically Wednesday morning through Wednesday into Wednesday evening, we're still seeing that freezing rain come down. And this is where things get concerning. Overnight to 2 a.m., we're still seeing it happen. But what happens is the storm redevelops behind itself, and we almost start over here, as you can see. This is by the time we're reaching about 11 a.m. on Thursday, and then we get another round of it right behind it. So this is 8 p.m. on Thursday. We're above 24 hours of freezing rain coming down now by this point, pretty heavy to Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, same exact regions there. And then that moves up, like I said, into the northeast, where I'm also concerned about a lot of that freezing rain as well. A lot of snowfall doesn't develop for these regions on this model yet. As you can see, what ends up happening is it becomes more of a snowstorm for these regions, which will also be worth noting. This is as we're heading towards Friday the 25th, so the end of the week. And yes, I do expect another round of severe weather as our low pressure system's about here, warm fronts up here. So as that cold front comes through, we will see warm air heading up like that with the cold air coming in behind it. And obviously that's always a concern, especially when you see a stronger cold front being indicated on the models. Even these days here, I could see some severe weather going on. So each of these storms has featured multiple days of severe weather. This would be storm number 3, basically. So I'm not going to be surprised to see severe weather with this one, as well as all of these storms have featured a similar pattern we've been stuck in, first off, but also a similar track, similar characteristics. So with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if we see 2 to 3 days of some pretty slight to moderate, and I don't mean moderate risk, I mean more like enhanced or above a slight risk. Maybe I should reword that. I wouldn't be surprised to see anything from a marginal to an enhanced risk at some point during this third storm as well, since we're also seeing that with the 2 storms prior to it that also took a similar track. So once this is said and done, we get in a very interesting pattern. Basically, what wants to happen is this model wants to just straight up bring the polar vortex into the eastern United States and a ridge out west. And the GFS does too, but we'll get into that in a moment. Almost, it's crazy to say, but at the end of February here, like the very tail end into the very beginning of March, this model wants to bring the coldest air of the entire winter into the United States. And for Virginia and North Carolina, my local region here, we have seen probably more wintry weather than we've seen in any winter, at least as far as how consistent it's been with multiple snowstorms and things. We've had very large snowstorms that have brought us more snow than we've seen this year, but it has been just winter storm after winter storm for us, which is very unusual. And it's also been a lot of cold. So I've been pretty much ready for the spring weather. I'm more excited for hearing thunder than I am for seeing snowflakes at this point. That's usually how I feel after a relatively snowy winter. And I'm ready to wear shorts and a t-shirt and get out there and do things. But it's almost like this is winter's last laugh. Okay, so as we see this play out, here's that potential nor'easter, like I mentioned yesterday. First off, so the flow becomes like this a little bit with the southern jet, and then the northern jet is clearly coming in also like this. So we will watch this general region. It would be a big slap in the face if we did see another winter storm. I mean, I wouldn't mind it, but it's a pretty close call even for my local region there. If it comes in a little bit later, that is surely going to be a snowstorm, honestly, for these regions with this pattern. Almost a southern slider there if there's just a tiny bit more cold air. We'll be watching for that. We have just a ton of cold air coming in just like this at this point. Again, some of the coldest air of the winter, potentially, especially here for the East Coast, as this trough really digs into this region. Again, specifically my region, obviously. The one winter where I'm actually like sick of winter weather, this is what happens as we reach the first day of meteorological spring. We get some of the coldest air of the year, potentially of the past couple of years. And another close call here, actually, with a low pressure system, very broad low pressure system offshore, as this very cold air is sitting here in the United States. We'll watch this. But this is going to be pretty interesting. The only good news here for people who want warmer weather in the east is it does look like towards March 3rd. This model does want to dig something down here with another low pressure system potentially moving in like this, which would take this ridge, because the jet stream's about like this on this frame. It would take this ridge, the warmest air is located about here, and it would center it over the east, basically. So this would shift to the east as we reach about March 4th, 5th time frame. That is pretty long range. But that is what this model would basically do. And it almost wants to take us back into this pattern that we've been in, which I would prefer over just like brutally cold air here with nor'easters again. I feel like I would prefer what we've kind of been dealing with, honestly. At least there's warm-ups in between the nasty weather, I feel like. But that's just where I'm at this point. So that is where this model takes us. I want to talk about the total freezing rain, because things get really concerning here. You can see storm number 1 here. The freezing rain is much further north. So for there, we expect a glaze. I'm just going to underline it. A glaze would be specifically this first bar. And then the second bar would be about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, which is where you start to see impacts. And that's basically what we're dealing with here for Iowa, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and up through Canada as well. That's also pretty much what we're dealing with here for the northeastern portion of Storm 2/3, except we kind of get into the 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch up there, I believe. Now, it's mostly Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, and Illinois here. More specifically, southern Illinois that I'm mostly concerned about. That's where we get easily to 1 to 2 inches of freezing rain here. And I want to zoom in. I want to see if I can pick a good region to zoom into here. Let's see. I guess, let's see. Can we get even more zoomed in here? I guess this is going to be the best we've got. So this model is indicating easily, like I said, an inch to maybe an inch and a half or 2 inches for these regions. And specifically right there, I feel like that darker shade definitely gets towards 2 inches. The maximum here that this model is indicating, which would be somewhere in Oklahoma, I'm pretty sure, is 1.96 inches, so close to 2 inches of freezing rain. Imagine actually 2 inches of ice around everything. We got to hope this 1-2 punch doesn't happen like this model has been indicating. Let's just take a look here quickly at the GFS model and see what it says for the upcoming pattern. Storm number 1 moves through. Heavy snowfall for these regions. Actually, I forgot to do something here. Let's take a look at the total snowfall quickly. Kuchera there. You can see how much those ratios increase these amounts because it's so frigid when a lot of this snowfall happens. So this is the entire model run. You can just find your region. There's too much going on for me to specify everywhere, but the gray areas are dusting, if anything. Blues are going to be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purples will be 6 to 10. Pinks will be 10 to 20. Pastel blues will be 20 to 30. And then pastel pinks are going to be more of your 30 to 48 inches of snowfall, or even more. So pastel pinks, for instance, are southern Colorado there, and northern Washington in the United States, just to name a few. Pastel blues are northern Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. All right, now let's move on to the GFS and take a look at the upcoming pattern. Storm number 1 moves through. Storm number 2 does do the 1-2 punch there, so again, very concerning to see that. We got to hope that does not happen. Also brings that very strong cold front for this region that could bring some thunderstorms or at least windy impacts. We're going to have to get a little bit closer to this second threat. Here's threat number 1. We see the severe weather for the deep south, day 1. Day 2, we see it mostly going to be moving into these regions as this cold front moves through overnight right there. So this is what we're watching for day 2. We'll take a look at the Storm Prediction Center in a moment, like I said. Then here's the second storm. Don't think there will be any severe weather yet because it's just so cold. But by the time we reach about there, I think the cold air is lifted off enough to where we could have some severe weather by the time we're reaching Thursday, Friday time frame, maybe even Saturday. No, probably not. Thursday, Friday time frame, we're going to be watching for that, where we do get a snowstorm and ice storm up here in the northeast, which is also worth noting there. Now, again, by the time we reach about the very end of February, Saturday, Sunday time frame, which is coming up in a hurry, believe it or not. We have the jet stream doing exactly what the European model showed. This trough wants to dig into the east. We have a low pressure system right there, and that is so close to a snowstorm. You can tell how close it is because we have a very minor snowfall event happening right there. It just doesn't come up the coast. So that is a very close call on both the European and the GFS model, and it's within 5 days, or 7 days, I believe. Yeah, should be within 7 days. We get the same thing here on this GFS model, a deep trough digging into the east. Truly Arctic invasion here. I mean, these temperatures would be absolutely frigid, especially up there. But even to some unusual regions all around here would just be absolutely frigid. As an Arctic air mass is mostly centered here, bringing those very cold conditions down. Now we can see it kind of just sticks around here on this GFS model. This is by the time we're reaching the second, and we get a bit of an inverted trough there. Very, very interesting. And then we get some low pressure systems trying to develop. That almost looks like a tropical cyclone there. Obviously a little strange here on the GFS model. GFS model is known for doing some really strange things. That looks a little strange to me. Just the way that acts, the way it hangs out there and does a little swirly stuff, that makes me think this model literally thinks there might be a tropical cyclone, which, by the way, I don't think will happen, obviously. More likely than not, I feel like this would come up like a nor'easter, so we'll be watching for that. I don't think it'll have tropical characteristics. We do see that the southern jet does get involved here. It really does. We see there's a strong southern jet pulling precipitation up here because we see all this precipitation in this region. For multiple days, we see that energy. And the GFS, the interesting thing, this is March 6th, we still have that trough in the east, ridge in the west, big ridge in the west, and then this southern jet here. I don't know why it doesn't connect on a lot of these, but it is 325 hours out on the GFS model, so that's probably why it's acting a little strange. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at the Storm Prediction Center. Now, here's day one. They've left a lot of room for an enhanced risk. I would not be surprised to see us go up to that enhanced risk. We expect general thunderstorms, for instance, in Oregon and Washington, Utah and Colorado there, and then even here for this very large region over the eastern/central United States. This darker green region is our marginal risk, which is where we expect isolated severe weather to take place in there, kind of just some spotty regions. And then the yellows are slight risk, which is where we expect some more scattered areas of severe weather to take place. And if we do get that enhanced upgrade somewhere in there, that's where we expect it to get a little bit more widespread. Now, your individual wind risks, or your individual severe weather risks, first off, the wind risk, 5% chance within 25 miles of a given location there within the brown, 15% chance there in the yellow. So if we saw an enhanced, some of these would go up. For instance, if we saw this go up to an enhanced, it would be a 30% chance potentially. Hail is a little bit of a smaller region, but it's the same percentages there. So you just have to find your region. Tornadoes, we expect a 2% chance of tornadoes within 25 miles of a given location there within the green, and a 5% chance within 25 miles of a given location there within the brown. Let's move on to the day after. So that's going to be for today. Let's move towards Tuesday. We do have the individual outlooks here, by the way. We see a general thunderstorm risk there for the coast of California, a general thunderstorm risk for this large region here in the east. We have a rather large marginal risk where we expect isolated severe weather to potentially take place, and then a rather large slight risk within it where we also expect some scattered severe weather to take place. Now, as we take a look at that wind outlook, we have a 5% chance within 25 miles of a given location there within the brown, 15% chance there within the yellow. Hail risk is the same thing, except it's a little bit smaller, same story as the day before. And then our tornado risk is a 2% chance within 25 miles of a given location there within the green, 5% chance within 25 miles of a given location there within the brown. Now, we're going to be watching both of these days. Today, be on the lookout. Pay attention to what the Storm Prediction Center is saying. If you have Twitter, you can always follow their Twitter, and they will post the upgrades as they happen. But be looking for an enhanced upgrade, and more specifically, be on the lookout here for an upgrade for a 10% chance of tornadoes, because that would be particularly concerning, obviously. Be on the lookout for that. That would be doubling the chance here of tornadoes from 5% to 10%. So be watching for that if that does happen. And of course, be watching for warnings as they come in always. Now, for today's confidence tab, unsurprisingly, we are at a 4 out of 6, obviously. That's what I've been going with. Ever since I've kind of changed the style of my videos, we've been mostly talking about all the way from the short range to the very, very long range, and that just leaves me right at the middle. Now, there might be some circumstances as we head into hurricane season where I'll talk about some lower confidence things, but for now, that's not really happening. For today's comment of the day, I asked guys, how do you think the upcoming month of March is going to go? And James Barr said, I believe it will be quite active with wild temperature swings, better yet. And I definitely agree. I think that is what's going to cause it to be wild and active, just because those temperature swings during the early spring is what really leads towards more severe weather. And with the current setup that we've had throughout the late portion of February here, or I guess since the halfway mark of February, we've been mostly dealing with those very large warm-ups for the east, I guess the eastern half of the country or even the central United States, and then very, very strong cooldowns that come through. And that violent switch is what really causes a lot of that severe weather to take place. And I expect that pattern to kind of continue. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dobie Nagel, Lure the Pant, Mandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, Dave Scott, and Donna Carnes as well. I would also thank our diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Maker Kutalessa, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Bill Dallas, Garys, and John Calisi also. I would also thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.